Mapping the fall of Constantinople, the end of a 1,000-year empire. Imagine a city whose mighty walls had withstood the onslaught of time for over 1,000 years. A city that stood as the crossroads between the East and the West, where echoes of ancient empires still resounded through the streets. This was Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. A city of unparalleled importance. But by 1453, this era was drawing to a close, and the world was about to witness the end of an empire that had lasted for over a millennium. To understand how Constantinople finally fell, we have to go back a few years. By the mid-15th century, the Byzantine Empire was but a shadow of its former self. Once stretching over vast portions of Europe, North Africa, and Asia, the empire had shrunk down to little more than Constantinople and a few outlying territories. The rest had been swallowed up by the rising power of the Ottoman Empire, which now surrounded the city. For the Byzantines, sieges were nothing new. However, this time, things were different. Standing on the other side of the story was a man whose name would soon become synonymous with ambition and conquest: Sultan Mehmet II. Mehmet was just 21 years old when he came to the throne of the Ottoman Empire, but his vision far surpassed his years. He felt that he could never truly cement his power unless he did what no one else had been able to do: take Constantinople. It was more than just a city, it was a symbol. To capture it would not only bring the Byzantine Empire to its knees, but also usher in a new era where the Ottomans were at the helm of power. In April of 1453, Mehmet mustered an overwhelming force: 80,000 men with a fleet of over 100 ships. However, by far the most terrifying of his weapons wasn't the army, but rather his cannons. Mehmet had a secret weapon designed by a Hungarian engineer named Orban. Now, these massive cannons could fire stone balls weighing over half a ton, capable of shattering even the most solid walls. Outside of the city, giant siege engines were being wheeled into place by the defenders of Constantinople. Under the last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, watched in dread. Things looked grim outside of the city. The defenders numbered only about 7,000 soldiers, a mix of Greeks, Venetians, and Genoese, while the population of Constantinople was only around 50,000. Emperor Constantine XI knew that the odds were stacked against him, and he wrote to the Pope, to kings across Europe, really anyone who would hear him, begging for reinforcements, but no help came. Europe was too preoccupied with its own conflicts, such as the ongoing 100 Years' War, and Constantinople really was left to face its fate alone against the might of Mehmet's forces. The siege began on April 6th of 1453. Almost immediately, Mehmet's cannons unleashed a relentless barrage upon the walls day and night, shaking the very foundation of Constantinople to its core. In time, the unrelenting assault managed to shatter and breach the legendary and impenetrable Theodosian walls, which had protected the city for well over a millennium. The defenders valiantly repaired the breaches, knowing full well that this was a losing battle. Yet, they still endured. For days on end, the Byzantines fought off the Ottoman assaults, praying against hope that they might hold out long enough for a miracle. But Mehmet was not relying on brute force alone. He was a strategic genius. One of his most dazzling moves came when he ordered that his ships to be dragged over land around the great chain that protected the Golden Horn. In a single night, the Ottoman ships were pulled across logs and launched into the waters behind the city's walls. In an instant, Constantinople was surrounded on every side by land and by sea. There was nowhere left for the defenders to flee. Now, as time wore on, those inside the city started to lose hope. Food supplies dwindled, and the continual barrage of cannon fire wore them down. Yet, Emperor Constantine refused to surrender. In late May, realizing the inevitable, he delivered a final speech to his people. He stood before them, not as an emperor, but as a man, urging them to fight for their city, their faith, and everything that they held dear. The call to action was clear, but by then, the course of events had already been set in motion. The final attack began on May 29th of 1453. Pressed on every side by Mehmet's remorseful forces, the defenders faced the full fury of the Ottoman army. They fought valiantly, but the tide of battle turned against them. Where the walls were breached, chaos swept through the streets, and Emperor Constantine XI wouldn't budge. He refused to flee, choosing instead to fight to the death. According to legend, he tore off his imperial regalia and plunged into the battle, dying as a soldier among his men. By mid-morning, the city had fallen. The Ottoman forces had surged into Constantinople, and the city that had stood for over 1,000 years was now in Ottoman hands. Sultan Mehmet II rode triumphantly through the gates and made his way to the Hagia Sophia, the great church that had been built as a spiritual heart of Byzantium. There, he declared that Constantinople would be the new capital of the Ottoman Empire, and Hagia Sophia would be converted into a mosque. As the city fell, it wasn't just the walls of Constantinople that crumbled, but the entire era came to an end. The Byzantine Empire, once a formidable force, ceased to exist. The Ottoman Empire, now in control of Constantinople, gained a foothold in both Europe and Asia, establishing itself as one of the most powerful empires in the world. The reverberations of Constantinople's fall extended far beyond its walls. In Europe, the city's collapse sent shockwaves through Christendom. Once viewed as the bulwark against the Muslim world, Constantinople's fall left Europe quite vulnerable. This event even contributed to the Age of Exploration, as European powers, cut off from Eastern trade routes by the Ottomans, began seeking new paths to reach Asia. It was in this pursuit of these new routes that explorers like Christopher Columbus would eventually discover the New World. Another immediate effect of the conquest was the flight of Byzantine scholars. Carrying ancient manuscripts and knowledge preserved in Constantinople for centuries, they fled to Italy and other parts of Europe. Their knowledge helped ignite the Renaissance, a cultural and intellectual rebirth that would forever alter European history. The fall of Constantinople marked a pivotal moment in the balance of power. With the city under Ottoman control, they gained a crucial foothold in Europe and Asia, solidifying their position as a dominant empire. Over the next century, the Ottomans would expand further into Europe, shaping global politics for generations to come. Yet despite the fall of an empire, Constantinople, or Istanbul as you would call it now, remained what it has always been, a city at the crossroads of culture, religion, and empires. The fall of Constantinople was a significant moment in history, but it reflects a timeless truth. History is always on the move. Empires rise, empires fall, but cities endure. Their streets and buildings bearing witness to the ebb and flow of human history. Now, as we walk the streets of Istanbul today, the echoes of that day in 1453 can still be felt. The ancient walls bear the scars of time, but their defiance still endures, a testament to this remarkable city. The Byzantine Empire may now be gone, but the spirit of Constantinople lingers on, in our art, in our culture, and in the stories of a bygone era. Hey, thanks for watching, and remember, when we all look at the fall of Constantinople, history tells us not just about the end of an empire, but the beginning of something new. That's a wrap. Hey, I'll catch you on our next adventure.